Friends, welcome to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It's not difficult for you, but it's nice for me, and we're starting. I am Chris Harrington, the 48-year-old son and fourth child of Carl, a corporate lawyer, and Mary, a nurse. The earthquake nearly destroyed our family home when at the end of junior high school, I announced that I did not want to go to college. My usually talkative parents were stunned into silence at first, and then began to make my life miserable. After all, college was the lot of the Harrington children. Mom and Dad applied to 6 very good colleges and universities behind my back. I was accepted into all of them, which increased the pressure from my whole family, all except my paternal grandfather, Papa Harrington. I've been working for my grandfather on vacation since I was 13. Dad was involved in the resale of houses long before the term resale appeared. He would buy a dilapidated house, usually owned by a long-retired couple, completely renovate it, and then sell it at a large profit. During the spring semester preceding my junior year at school, my dad helped me buy 2 houses for renovation. I spent the summer recruiting contractors, electricians, plumbers, and painters, and making sure the work was done properly. 2 days before Labor Day, the unofficial end of summer, I sold my second home. While my friends spent the summer working for minimum wage, I split the profits with my dad and earned almost $8,000. I sold 3 houses the following summer. Dad insisted that I find the sources of financing myself, although he agreed to sign the bills. At the end of the summer, I gave my dad 25% of my profit. I still have a wad of money that an average 17-year-old teenager could choke on. Although I studied above average and enjoyed my studies, I knew that college was not for me. In the end, I made a truce with Mom and Dad. We agreed that I would take a vacation next year after graduation, but I would need to apply to college again, and the whole family would decide whether I would enroll in it next year. While my friends were working part-time in the summer and preparing for their first year of college, I bought a used Ford F-150 pickup truck with 123,000 miles, a primitive cell phone, and opened a company called Harrington Construction. I contacted every real estate agent who would agree to talk to me and explained which houses I was interested in. I committed to using them as a buying agent when I bought the house they recommended, and as a selling agent when the renovation was completed. That's how I met the Kelly sisters. Jane and Mickey were agents in their early 20s and relatively recently started working in real estate after graduating from college. They were assistants in the local franchise of a leading national firm. I was just repairing 2 houses when I got a call. Hello? Chris, this is Mickey Kelly. I found a house in West Hartford and it seems to meet your requirements. Don't you want to see it? The biggest lesson I've learned from Dad is urgency. If an opportunity presented itself, I had to be ready to take it. I've arranged to meet Mickey in 90 minutes. The house was a modest ranch. According to my estimates, it was built about 50 years ago. Mickey told me that it belonged to the inheritance of an elderly couple. They have lived in the house for almost 35 years. Their children lived on the West Coast and wanted to get rid of the house as soon as possible and sort out the inheritance. The house was in excellent condition but was badly dilapidated and in need of renovation. How much do you think they will take? I asked Mickey. I think he will leave pretty quickly, and the price will be close to $89,000. I suspected she was right. I'm offering $85,500 in cash. I need 5 days to complete the due diligence process, and I will close the deal within 5 days after the inspector's report if there are no problems. Mickey was thrilled. We returned to her office, drafted and signed the offer, and sent it to the sales agent. The offer was accepted. The inspector's report came without any surprises, and a week later, we made a deal. Let's celebrate, Mickey suggested as we left the lawyer's office after the deal was completed. I live in the same apartment with my sister. It's less than 2 miles from here. Let's go have a drink. I followed Mickey to her beautifully decorated 3rd-floor apartment on the outskirts of West Hartford. She let me open a bottle of Merlot and pour 2 glasses. We made a toast in silence and each took a sip. I hope you won't mind if we celebrate this event in a different way. Dad taught me a lot about real estate, including that female agents were often grateful to work with contractors who could buy and sell several houses in a year. He often said, if I were younger and not married to my grandmother, I would take full advantage of any bonus they offer. Mickey leaned over and kissed me on the lips. When she pulled back and saw the smile on my face, she bent down again and stuck her tongue in my mouth. It was a very aggressive kiss. Holding a glass of wine in one hand, I slid my hand down Mickey's back, felt her small, round, athletic ass, and pulled her to me. We kissed and fondled each other for a few minutes before Mickey pulled away. She handed me her glass of wine and knelt down with a smile from ear to ear. She deftly unbuckled my belt, unbuttoned my trousers, and in one motion pulled down my pants and boxers to my ankles. "It looks amazing." I was only 18, but I had already made a lot of love. Most of the copulations were awkward and ultimately not satisfying when I was sitting in the back seat with my schoolgirl friends. I also became friends with 3 real estate agents, including a 43-year-old married woman who taught me most of my love skills. My mentor advised me to always warn my companions. When I felt the first glimpses of that very moment, I said to Mickey, "I'm getting close." Wiping her mouth with the back of her hand, she got up from her knees. She reached for her glass, took a healthy sip, and asked, "Will you kiss me now that I've washed your liquid out of my mouth?" We clung to each other and let our tongues entwine in a frenzied kiss with our mouths open. "I'm going to do you a favor in return," I told Mickey. "You don't have to. It won't be a very big celebration." When Mickey didn't answer, I handed her a glass of wine, then squatted down, untied my shoelaces, and took them off. I pulled my legs out of my trousers and boxers and took off my socks. A few seconds later, I pulled my golf shirt over my head and threw it on the floor, and I was already naked. Mickey took a long, hard look at my bare chest with a wide smile. I took both glasses from Mickey and put them on the table. Wrapping my arms around her body, I squeezed each leg with my hands, just above the knees, and kissed her neck while my hands slid higher. Mickey groaned, "Oh shit, I can't wait." "You are very confident in yourself." I ran all 4 nails over her pants and over her mound. "I am very confident in myself." Placing both hands on her waist, I ran my open palms down her sides to her shoulders. She raised her hands as I moved forward. When her arms were stretched over her head, I reached down and grabbed the bottom of her light summer sweater, pulled it over her head, and threw it on the floor. Moments later, her bra was removed. I reached out and cupped Mika's cups as she sighed. I caressed her breasts and listened to her grunting. When I unwrapped Mickey, bent down, took the nipple in my mouth and chewed it. Mickey wrapped her arms around my head and moaned, "Bastard." I undid the buttons on her trousers and pulled them down to her knees. Mickey managed to get out of his trousers when I pulled the trousers down to the floor. Continuing the deep kiss with my tongue, I held Mickey back until her feet rested on the couch. I let her sink into a sitting position and knelt between her spread thighs. When Mickey begged, "I need a break," and pushed my head away, I got up. After the second grunt, I pulled her out and forced her to kneel. Mickey was exhausted when I asked, "Where do you want me to finish?" "I don't care." A few weeks later, I met Mickey's sister, Jane. We were looking at a 3-family house on the Hartford-Wethersfield line. Since 2 floors were rented out, it would be very difficult to quickly renovate the entire house. The price was great, but it was impossible to redo the house quickly, and Jane and I knew it. We finished the tour on the empty 3rd floor. Jane apologized for wasting her time and then asked, "Is there any way I can make it up to you?" Jane loved strong love. "I have my period. I hope you don't mind using my ass." The next 5 years flew by unnoticed. When I showed my parents my financial information after the first year, they agreed that I was doing very well. They were disappointed that I wasn't going to college, but they saw my passion for the real estate business. They supported me 100%. Starting in my 2nd full year of work, I rented from a dozen to 15 houses a year. I was also actively looking for apartment buildings with 6 to 12 apartments. I renovated each unit as the tenants were leaving and kept the property for rental income. I quickly discovered that managing rental properties is a pain in the ass. Since I didn't want to get a call at 3 in the morning because of a broken toilet, I hired a real estate management company and assigned it to take care of the rental property and all related problems. Mickey and Jane got married within 2 months of each other. I was invited to both weddings. I assumed that our dates, including several threesomes with my sisters, were in the past. I was pleasantly surprised when Jane called and asked if the girls could come to my apartment. One of the most loving and perverse things I've ever experienced was when both girls were standing in front of me. 2 ring fingers with wedding and engagement rings slid over my thick trunk. I was 24 years old when Mickey and Jen invited me to dinner with their husbands and their younger sister. Kate had recently graduated from college and had been teaching at an elementary school in the Hartford area for a year. Kate went to school on a swimming scholarship and was stunningly beautiful, She was taller than her sisters with her height of 5 feet 9 inches. She weighed 135 pounds, had red hair and green eyes. Her athletic physique was accentuated by her long-toned legs and the most gorgeous ass in the world. And even better than her appearance was her personality. She was smart, sincere, and laughed easily. I was happy to meet her over drinks and dinner, even though we were with her sisters and their husbands. I was thrilled when, at the end of the evening, she agreed to take me home to my parents. We were already approaching the Dunkin' Donuts store when Kate suggested that we stop and talk, because this was the first time we were alone. After taking our drinks, we found a table where we could have some privacy. "Listen," Kate began. "You seem like a nice guy, and under different circumstances, I think I'd like to get to know you better. I'd like to get to know you better too. What's bothering you? I know that you have been friends with my sisters for several years, and I know that they are fools. I'm pretty sure they're cheating on their husbands. How does this affect you and me? I'm not going to ask if you've ever slept with any of them," Kate continued. "But if we're dating, even if we weren't exclusive, you can't date my sisters anymore." "Agreed," I replied. "You should also know that I'm not a cheater. I'm far from a virgin, but I've only had love with guys with whom I have exclusive relationships. That's not a lot of men." Kate and I started dating. When I asked her out for the 4th time, I invited her to my house for a private dinner. I was thrilled when she agreed. I picked her up at her relative's house, and I think she was shocked when I pulled into the parking lot behind my house. I didn't live in a condo anymore. Harrington's dad and grandma died within 3 weeks of each other, 4 years ago. They were incredibly generous to their children and grandchildren, leaving behind significant possessions acquired over the course of Dad's life. I inherited their old farmhouse, barn, and 73 acres of land in a small rural town 20 minutes from Hartford. Fruit trees, fruit bushes, and vegetables grew on the plot. The land was leased to a local farmer, and the rental income allowed me to maintain the farm without investing my own funds. It took me almost a year to decide on the reconstruction of a 130-year-old farmhouse and barn, and 2 more years to complete the project. When everything was completed, I became the owner of a beautiful house. From the outside, it was neat and kept the look of an old traditional farmhouse. Inside, everything was gutted, and several walls were eliminated so that the house acquired a modern, open look. I also renovated the barn. I filled in the concrete floor and turned the barn into a huge garage and storage room. The back corner has been turned into a gym. The hayloft on the 2nd floor was converted into a modern office, and now Harrington Real Estate and Construction Company was located there. In truth, the office was my man cave. There was only one employee in my company, me. I bought, renovated, and either sold the property or rented it out. I subcontracted all the repairs, hired real estate agents, lawyers, financiers, and accountants. I was one person. Kate was impressed when I gave her a big tour. I think she was also impressed by the lasagna, asparagus, and salad that I served for dinner. We ate on my backyard patio, drank wine, and talked until the candles burned out. "Can I ask you something?" Kate nodded and replied, "Of course. I like getting to know you, and I want to spend more time with you." Kate's smile brightened. "I don't want to date anyone but you. Would you consider an exclusive relationship?" The smile slowly disappeared, and I was crushed when Kate said, "I need to think about it." Gradually, the smile returned. She laughed and said, "I've been thinking about this for a long time. It's time to ask," jumped on my lap and kissed me. It took almost 45 minutes to get to my double bed on the 2nd floor of the house. All this time we were slowly kissing, touching, and undressing each other. When we fell on the mattress hugging, I was the happiest person in the world. I admit I was only worried that I would compare Kate with her slutty sisters and be disappointed in the quality of love. After a very tiring night, which included making love, I realized that I had found the right sister. She loved love as much as her sisters, but wanted an exclusive relationship. Shortly after Kate and I got engaged, her father called and asked if we could meet for a beer. Her parents and I were friends, but we didn't quite get along. I knew the reason. I didn't have a college education. George and I met the next day, and as usual, he got straight to the point. "Chris, I like you. I really like you, but I think it's very important that you and Kate sign a prenuptial agreement. Have you talked to Kate about this yet?" George replied, "Not yet, but I'm going to." He handed a paper folder across the table and continued, "I asked my lawyer to draft this. The prenuptial agreement consisted of only 2 pages and basically stated that in the event of a divorce for any reason, Kate and I would keep all the property that we had brought into the marriage. Kate will keep all the assets acquired in her current and future jobs, and I will keep all the assets of my business. If we have children, the court will establish all alimony payments, and each of us will be required to contribute $5,000 a year to the college fund. It seemed fair and quite simple. I told George, I don't see any problems, but let me ask my lawyer to take a look at this. I will return it to you within a week. Kate and I got married at the end of her sophomore year and went on a 2-week honeymoon to several Caribbean islands. During the vacation, we conceived a child, and Kayla was born 9 months after our wedding. Our second daughter, Kara, was born 16 months later, and 2.5 years after her, baby Carla. Life was mostly good. In addition to her teaching duties, Kate returned to school to earn a master's degree in education, as well as a school administrator certificate. It's been a tough 3 years, and all the time it felt like Kate and I were moving in opposite directions. My business was going well. With the development of the internet, I was able to change the direction of my company's activities and left the field of repair in the real estate business. Instead, using access to information on the web, I started looking for problematic vacation properties on the Northeast coast and in the ski areas of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and upstate New York. After finding an attractive object and conducting a routine check, I bought it and immediately sold it to someone who wanted to repair it. In the real estate industry, this type of transaction is known as wholesale. Of course, I didn't make that much money on every transaction, but instead of 12 to 15 regular transactions per year, I made from 75 to 100 wholesale transactions. I continued to invest in residential apartments and currently owned 18 buildings with a total of 124 housing units. Since my reputation in this industry was above average, I also became a partner in an investment group that lent money to sellers. It was one of the best companies of its kind in the Northeast. The most interesting thing about changing the direction of my business and my companies is that the amount of time I worked daily has decreased. Instead of a 60-hour work week involving moving from renovation project to renovation project and looking for new projects, my new responsibilities required 20 to 30 hours a week. I was able to devote more precious time to my family. On average, the working day consisted of a 4-hour rise and an hour-long workout. Every morning I would wake my beloved wife and children up to the smell of a hearty breakfast and cook them a healthy homemade lunch that they could take with them. I kissed my wife and children goodbye and watched the children board the school bus every morning. From 7:30 to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I was busy with work. I talked to all the realtors I knew, looked for new wholesale deals, read reports on our credit company, and performed 1,000 small details that were necessary in my work. Most often, I managed to leave work early in the morning in order to have time to prepare the children for school. I coached their sports teams, took them to dance class, made sure they did their homework, and brought them home for a healthy homemade dinner. I was the happiest person in the world. I had a successful career, and I was proud to carry the title of Mr. Mom. In the same period of time, Kate changed her profession. She left the classroom and became a school administrator. She started as the deputy principal of a secondary school, moved to an elementary school as a principal, then became the deputy principal of a secondary school, and finally, in 6 short years, became the assistant superintendent of our school system. The biggest downside was that while my working hours had decreased, Kate's time had increased. She had to attend numerous evening sports competitions and other school events. She went to all the meetings of the city council and the board of education. However, Kate liked her work and the positive changes she was bringing to our city, so I didn't complain. Instead, I enjoyed doing the housework. Even with our complicated lifestyle, Kate and I found time to be together, both in and out of the bedroom. When our 12th wedding anniversary passed, Kate and I made love 3 or 4 times a week. The only real test for our relationship began a few years earlier, in the 3rd year of our marriage. Kate and I sat together and celebrated Valentine's Day at our favorite local restaurant. We had just started dessert when Kate said, "I'd like to ask you something, and I'd like you to be open-minded." I admit, I was a little annoyed by her words and tone, and I replied, "When have I ever been open-minded with you?" Kate rolled her eyes and said, "I just think there's a chance. There's a small chance you'll be upset." So, after booking a table at our favorite restaurant and giving you a diamond pendant in honor of Valentine's Day, you decided that now is the time to talk about what might upset me. Great. Go ahead. For God's sake, Chris, I told you there was a small chance you'd be upset. I waved my hand before Kate could continue her tirade. Just tell me what you want to talk about. Kate stared at me for almost a minute and then continued. Mickey and Jane go on a 5-day cruise every spring. We chose a cruise during spring break at my school. I would like to go this year. I laughed and said, why should it upset me? That sounds like a great idea. Where are we going? Kate's initial smile turned to concern and she replied, no, you don't understand. We are planning to spend a week for girls only. My gaze never left Kate's eyes as I reached for my wine glass and took 2 small sips very slowly. Putting the glass back on the table, I asked, what exactly are you asking me? Kate looked puzzled and replied, I don't understand your question. You started this conversation by asking me if you could ask me a question. What's your question, Kate? What are you asking me? Kate pulled herself together and answered, well, I guess I'm asking you if you don't mind me leaving. I smiled broadly and replied, it's simple. No, I'm against you going, and I'm surprised you're asking. What's wrong with me leaving with my sisters? Kate was clearly annoyed. I was stunned. I shook my head and replied, as you well know, Mickey and Jane are cheaters. They were cheating 5 years ago when we started dating, as you yourself noticed. They are still cheating today, after each of them divorced because of infidelity. So you don't trust me? This is not the issue we are discussing. You asked if I was okay with you going away, dancing, drinking, and lying in a bikini on a week-long cruise with your cheating sisters. I am against it, and always will be against it. It took Kate a few moments to calm down before she said, you can't tell me that I can't go. Again, honey, that's not what we're discussing. We're discussing my feelings about you leaving your family to go on vacation with your 2 cheating sisters. I wish you'd stop calling them cheaters. I shrugged my shoulders and said, I wish they weren't cheating. Before we could continue, the waiter came up to the table and asked if we liked dessert. When we agreed that it was delicious, she said, the last course is a glass of our premium plum wine. Can I bring it to you? Before Kate could agree, I said, no thanks. I took my credit card out of my wallet, handed it to the waiter, and said, please swipe the card, add 20% to the tip, and bring me the check to sign. Kate was outraged. She raised her voice and said, we'll stay for wine, and I told the waiter, and we'll get him right away. Thank you. I suspect that the waiter knew that despite the fact that I gave my wife a beautiful pendant, I was not going to make love at the end of our date. I smiled at the waiter and said, bring my wife her wine and my glass too. When you check my card, return it to my wife and call her a taxi. The waiter's eyes almost popped out of my head when I threw my napkin on the table, got up and went to the dressing room to get my jacket. After starting the car, I looked at my watch and gave Kate exactly 3 minutes to pay the bill and get to the parking lot. She got there with 7 seconds to spare. When she got into the car, she was furious. Never. Don't ever put me in this position again. Do you understand me? I drove half a mile before I answered calmly. We just finished a conversation during which I was informed that I cannot forbid you to leave for a week with your cheating sisters. And if that's the case, then you can't stop me from shaming you in public, and I'll do it any time I want. Kate was stunned. I've never spoken to her like that before. She wisely decided to remain silent for the rest of our trip. I parked the car by the barn. While Kate was walking to the door leading to the street and into the house, I went up the stairs to my office. Where are you going? We haven't finished talking yet. Go inside now. I was halfway up the stairs. I turned around and yelled, who are you talking to? Don't ever tell me what to do again. Kate was still standing with her jaw open when I slammed the office door behind me. Over the next few weeks, the temperature in our house varied from freezing to Arctic cold. Depending on the temperature, I slept in my office for many nights. 4 days before Kate was supposed to leave, she cornered me in my office. Can we talk? What is it? She asked. Of course. I pointed to a chair and said, please, have a seat. Kate looked at me for a long time before saying, I don't want to leave when you're mad at me. I shrugged my shoulders and said, there is an easy way to change my mood. Chris, I'm going on a cruise. This is final. We sat in silence for a few moments, and then I asked, can I say a few words? After Kate nodded in agreement, I told her, for the first time in our entire life together, I am worried about the health of our marriage. For the first time, I'm worried that your actions they can lead to the fact that our family will break up. It's not fair, Chris. Do you really think I'm going to make love to some guy on a cruise? Sitting here now, I know you're not thinking about cheating on me, but in a few days you'll be with your sisters, drinking and having fun. 3 gorgeous women in such an environment will attract men, and this can easily lead to unforeseen consequences, especially if 2 of them are fools. Hey, Kate, you know I'm right. I saw that Kate was preparing for an answer and was caught off guard when I insisted that she knew I was right. She had the decency to blush. I continued, you have to understand that I care about a lot of things, not just love. Are you going to kiss men? Will you hold hands? How about a slow dance with his hands on your ass, or letting a man smear sunscreen on your body while you're lying by the pool? Chris, you're just ridiculous. I don't plan on doing any of this, but even if it happens, it's not that bad. I think my smile made Kate nervous. I asked, why aren't you planning on doing any of this? Why? Because a married woman should not enter into such a relationship with a man. But if a drunken mistake has occurred, this in no way means that it should lead to divorce. I shook my head and said, we keep walking in the same stupid circle. You didn't take into account my very strong feelings and concerns about this trip. If I find out that you've behaved inappropriately, I won't consider your feelings. I will do what is best for me and my daughters, right up to the divorce. I can't believe you're talking about a divorce. And I can't believe that your decision to go on this vacation led to us talking about divorce. Listen, I continued. I've accepted that you're going on this trip. I don't like it, of course, but I accept it. I hope you and your sisters have a nice time. But I want you to understand my concerns and know, certainly, if you cross the line and do something inappropriate and I find out about it, I'll kick you to the curb in a second. I was surprised when tears came out of Kate's eyes and rolled down her cheeks. She jumped up from her seat, walked to the door of my office, and shouted over her shoulder, I'm not going to do anything wrong. On the morning of Kate's departure, we were sitting at the kitchen table. The remains of the waffle breakfast were the only evidence of our delicious meal. Kate asked the girls about their plans for the week. When the clock in the kitchen struck 8 in the morning, Kate looked at me and said, it's time for us to go. I told Mickey we'd pick her up at 8:30 and Jane at 9. To us? I asked. Of course. You're taking us to the airport. Kate, I have conference calls scheduled for 8:30, 9 o'clock, and 9:45. I'm going to my office. What the hell is going on with you? What kind of husband doesn't take his wife to the airport? I was halfway to the kitchen door when I replied, the kind of husband who won't support this vacation in any way. And then, turning to the girls, he told them, please clear the table and the kitchen counter before turning on the TV. The next 9 years flew by unnoticed. Kayla had just turned 13, Kara was 11, and Carla was 8. I still liked being Mr. Mom and being responsible for the kids. Kate appreciated my efforts because it allowed her to remain the best administrator in our city's school system, as well as hold positions on several Connecticut state boards and national boards of education. I was incredibly proud of my wife, and at the same time enjoyed the close bond I had with my 3 daughters. It was a Friday afternoon in the last full week of April. Kate had returned 2 weeks earlier from her 9th spring cruise with her sisters. My phone was disconnected and I was listening to a conference call. I wasn't going to participate in the conversation. Just listen. I was standing by the open office window, enjoying the warm spring breeze, when Kate's car pulled into the driveway. Her sister Jen's car was following her. Kate jumped out of her car, and Jane and Mickey got out of the other one. I heard Jane ask, what's so important? Kate shushed her sister and said, let's talk in the kitchen. I don't want to risk Chris hearing us. This seems to be more important than my conference call, I thought, turning off the phone. Almost immediately, I launched the home security app on my mobile phone and moved on to the camera in our kitchen. I watched the women enter through the back door. When Mickey and Jen took their seats at our table, Kate poured the sisters 2 glasses of wine. Won't you? Mickey asked. After a pause, Kate replied, I can't right now. I'm taking antibiotics. What's the matter with you? Jane asked. I can't believe it, but one of the assholes I slept with infected me with gonorrhea, Kate confessed. What a fool, Jane said. You infected Chris. No, cried Kate. He always gets mad when I come back from a cruise. We're only going back to love in a couple of weeks. When will your doctor tell Chris? Mickey asked. I don't think he will. I went to a clinic in Albany, New York, and paid in cash. I told them that I was not married, and for the last 6 months I had only had love on a cruise with strangers. I had to provide the clinic with information about our cruise line and the names of the guys I slept with. The medical authorities will try to track down the person who gave it to me. I didn't listen to anything else and turned off the app. I went to the bookshelf, opened a bottle of Knob Creek, and poured an inch. As I sat down at my desk and took a healthy sip, I realized that I had been preparing for this moment for a decade and had already thought through all the actions necessary to end my marriage with Kate. I was sad. I almost died inside, but I was determined to take care of myself and my children. I called my personal lawyer and asked him to file for divorce. I wanted the prenuptial agreement to be fulfilled. I needed the house that I inherited from my grandfather. And most importantly, as the primary guardian, I insisted on full custody of my girls. My lawyer agreed that the custody issue should not be a problem. I instructed my lawyer to file for divorce due to irreconcilable differences, but to prepare a second divorce application, in which to indicate infidelity. I wasn't worried about splitting our bank accounts. At the very beginning, my lawyer advised Kate and me to have separate accounts in case my business failed. Each of us made equal contributions to the family budget on a quarterly basis, but we managed all other finances in our own name. I canceled 2 joint credit cards and paid off the balance using our family budget account. 30 minutes after I heard this fateful conversation, I took the rest of my drink and headed to the kitchen. The girls' conversation died down when I appeared at the door. Kate looked at me and asked, "Bad day, honey?" I sat down at my place at the far end of the kitchen table, nodded and said, "Yes, very bad." The group was watching with interest when Kate asked, "Do you want to tell us about it?" While I was thinking about my answer, we heard Kayla coming through the front door. Her best friend's mom gave her a ride home from high school. Kayla rushed into the kitchen, hugged her mom and aunts, and then rounded the table and wrapped her arms around my neck. Kayla hasn't seen her aunts since they left on their last cruise. Kayla told the aunts about her school and sports activities. They teased her with a boy who was in love with her. I looked around the table, and everyone except Kate was engrossed in conversation. Kate looked at me with a worried expression on her face. Kayla pointed over her head at Kara's room and continued, "I heard Mom, Aunt Jane, and Aunt Mickey talking through the vent. They laughed and bragged about who had the most love during the cruise. They described some very nasty things that I remember word for word, but I don't want to repeat them." "I remember everything too, Dad," Kara said. "Dad?" I replied. "Yes, Kayla. I'm sorry I didn't tell you." "I'm sorry too, Dad," Kara said. Kayla continued, "We know that Mom acted very badly, but we were afraid to tell you." I kept holding Kayla's hand and reached for Kara. Little Carla didn't understand everything that was happening, but she didn't want to stay away. She moved closer to Kara and joined them. I told all 3 girls, "You don't have to be sorry. Your mother and aunts shouldn't have put you in such a position to hear about their disgusting behavior. It's their fault, not yours. I won't live with my mom after the divorce. I want to live with you." I was surprised that Kayla had gone so far in her thoughts. I was glad and proud when Carla and Kara nodded in agreement. Kate decided to take a moment to continue her stupidity. She stated, "In case of divorce, the mother always gets custody. If your dad doesn't stop this nonsense immediately, you're going to live with me. I guarantee it." All 3 girls looked upset and turned to me. I smiled and explained, "In most cases, the mother receives primary custody." Kayla moaned until she saw me raise my hand. I continued, "They get custody because in most cases the mother is the main caregiver. Let me ask you a few questions. You don't have to answer out loud." The girls nodded for me to continue. "Who cooks breakfast for you every day? Who collects your lunch for school and prepares dinner for you? Who goes grocery shopping every week? Who stays at home with you every night while your mom is in a meeting? Who takes you to the doctor for your annual checkup or when you're sick? Who coaches your sports teams and volunteers to accompany school trips? Who takes you to dance classes and theater rehearsals?" After that, I asked, "Can you remember at least one thing that your mother does regularly to contribute to our family?" Kayla jumped up from her seat, rounded the table, and jumped into my outstretched arms. "It's you, Dad. You are our nurse and the best dad in the world." When Kayla finished, her 2 sisters joined us in a huge group hug. I waited a minute until we calmed down. "Go to your rooms, girls. My mom and aunts and I need to talk." I got 3 juicy kisses on the cheek. The girls ignored Kate, Jane, and Mickey as they headed out of the kitchen. They were already leaving the kitchen when I ordered, "Girls, I don't want you to eavesdrop. Please go to Carla's room." Given the emotional nature of the situation, I was glad to hear 3 giggles and a chorus. "Okay, Dad." "Looks like you've won," I said to Mickey and Jane. I saw that they didn't want to answer, but I forced them. What do you mean? Mickey asked. I wanted to have a faithful and loving wife, and you wanted Kate to be a cheater. You have won. Mickey had the decency to groan. I'm not a cheater, Chris. I laughed and replied. Your gonorrhea, infected one, is proof that you're a cheater. Stop it. Please act like an adult. We don't need vulgar expressions. Jane jumped up and explained. It was only 1 week of the year, Chris. Kate has a busy job and she's relaxing while we're away. There's nothing wrong with that. I couldn't help myself and said, if I wanted a fool for a wife, I'd marry you or Mickey. Fuck you, Chris. Mickey continued. You never complained when you used us. The sisters nodded in agreement. Let's take a look. I was 19, horny and lonely. I waited a bit before asking, as soon as you introduced me to Kate, did I accept at least one of your many invitations to continue making love to you? Everyone at the table knew the answer. No one said a word. I don't want a divorce. I will fight to keep our family together. Fortunately, Kate, I don't need your permission to divorce. I have ordered the divorce to take place on the basis of irreconcilable differences. If you resist, I will ask the court to issue an order for you to be tested for sexually transmitted diseases. I think the gonorrhea that swarms in the cesspool between your legs will prove that you are a cheater. Then I'll change the terms to infidelity, and the whole world will know that you're a lying liar. Hey, sis, said Jen. We're going to get out of here and give you two a chance to be alone. Both sisters started to get up, but stopped when I said, while you're leaving, I want you to take out the trash. They looked at me in confusion until I pointed at Kate and told them, take your sister to her room and ask her to pack enough things for a few weeks, and then get her out of my house. The epilogue. Although Kate tried to use family and friends to delay the divorce, she did not use official channels, as she did not want the whole world to know that she was a fool. The mandatory consultation, ordered by the court, lasted only 1 session. The consultant easily determined that I was not interested in continuing my marriage with Kate. The court accepted the marriage contract. Kate kept all the assets related to her work, and I kept my business. Best of all, I got primary custody of Kayla, Kara, and Carla. My 2 eldest daughters continued to feud with their mother and aunts, but remained close to their maternal grandparents. My youngest, Carla, is still close to her mother and sees her regularly.